All Canadians has a rare disorder. That equates to almost 3 million Canadians and their families which face a debilitating disease that severely impacts their life. About 80% of rare diseases have a genetic cause, and 50% of those have no family history. So it comes out of nowhere. There are more than 7,000 rare diseases that have been identified and new ones that are being discovered every day. 30% of all rare affected people are children, and they will not reach their 5th birthday. Sorry, I guess I might have had that backwards, but 2/3 of all rare Canadians are children, and only 5% of rare disorders have a treatment. Collectively, it is estimated that worldwide there are about 300 million people affected by rare, and those are just the patients. That does not include their families. So I didn't sign up for this exclusive club, nor would I wish this on my worst enemy. When you're a parent expecting a child, almost immediately you are full of hopes and dreams, and you begin to imagine the details. What will they look like? What might they be when they grow up? When you're the parent of a rare child, all of that changes in an instant. Very quickly, your dreams are replaced by a brand new reality. You have no choice but to become so much more than a parent. Some of the new roles include researcher, beggar, medical expert, negotiator, patient advocate, fundraiser, care coordinator, and squeaky wheel. You know what I mean? Just to get anything. So this is a picture of Michaela when she was just 4 years old. That's how old she was when she was diagnosed. Do you know any 4-year-olds? They're wonderful, aren't they? They're full of life and curiosity. They explore the world around them. When they smile, they light up the room, and when they laugh, it's contagious. When Michaela was 4, she was like that too. She loved to sing songs and play games and chase after her big sister, Faith. But there was something that was different about her, and as her mom, I knew very early on that there was something that was not quite right. This is the first greatest challenge of being rare. Getting the diagnosis. Personally speaking, it took 3.5 years of banging on doors and begging for answers. My first concerns were dismissed completely. And then there were a few misdiagnoses, including autism. At that point, when Michaela was diagnosed with autism, I had been a teacher for more than a decade, and I'd worked with children who had autism. And for me, that diagnosis just didn't fit, but I didn't care what they called it. I just wanted to know, what are we going to do to fix it? So the autism diagnosis meant more research, making more appointments with out-of-country experts, changing her diet, and more experimenting. But the beginning of the end of Michaela's diagnosis dance was a 3-way conversation. It was between myself, my family doctor's receptionist, and a developmental pediatrician. She was the only developmental pediatrician in the area, but she had closed her private practice and worked exclusively for 2 different agencies in the community, neither of which Michaela qualified for. She did not meet the criteria. So trying to get her diagnosed, I was told you need to see a developmental pediatrician. So I went to the family doctor and said, I can't see the one here in Windsor. Take me one, let's see if we can get one in London. And then after waiting and waiting, no reply, I called the family doctor. The receptionist said, well, we don't know of any. Do you know of any? And I said, I don't know of any. How about if we call that developmental pediatrician here in Windsor? So the 3-way conversation went me to the family doctor receptionist, to the developmental pediatrician, back and forth. And luckily, that developmental pediatrician, Dr. Beth Macklin, agreed to see Michaela out of her briefcase. So we met her very shortly after that, and then it took 3 months. In 3 months, we subjected Michaela to poking, prodding, all kinds of invasive testing, and then we got the answer. And when that phone call came, I will never forget it. I was told, Michaela has tested positive for mucopolysaccharidosis. What's that? Basically what it meant was that at 4 years old, her best years were already behind her. So mucopolysaccharidosis, or MPS, you've heard something about it. It refers to a group of 7 different rare genetic disorders in which one little enzyme, different for each, isn't working properly, so the affected person can't break down a specific long-chain sugar molecule that's naturally found throughout the body, so they build up and they cause progressive damage. According to the Canadian Organization for Rare Disorders, known as CORD, less than 6% of the 2,500 rare disease genetic tests that are available are performed here in Canada. So therefore, this contributed to another 3 months of excruciating waiting, hoping that they'd made a mistake in the initial diagnosis. But with further testing, they pinpointed her specific form. Michaela had MPS type 3B, also known as Sanfilippo syndrome, which affects 1 in about 200,000. Those are some of the symptoms that you see. We had our answer. We had a diagnosis. So what do we do about it? And this is what they said: nothing. There's nothing we can do. There are no treatments. There's no cure. Just take her home, keep her comfortable, and enjoy her while you can. One day, you will no longer be able to work because she will require full-time care. And that was the moment that defined my new rare reality. It was 11 years ago. So the devastating details are that this terrible monster is stealing my daughter away, piece by piece. In Sanfilippo syndrome, the central nervous system is attacked first, and typically the progression is by age 6, all language, both speaking and understanding, is gone. By age 10, children are usually wheelchair-bound. Eventually, all systems give way to the disease, and children rely on feeding tubes and breathing machines until they leave this world sometime in their mid-teens. So the next challenge of being rare is realizing that you're pretty much on your own. You must care for your rare child while overcoming endless challenges: personal sacrifice, an inability to work consistently, financial strain, limited access to health services and support. And one of the very most lonely and frustrating aspects of rare is the lack of knowledgeable health professionals. I'm really sad to say that usually I know more about Sanfilippo syndrome and all the cutting-edge developments than anyone else in the room. For example, during our first visit to Toronto Sick Kids to meet with Canada's leading MPS specialist, instead of getting the guidance that I so desperately needed, I felt like I was being interviewed. At that time, I had arranged to get a prescription from a pediatrician in Michigan for a medication that was only available in Poland, and it was processed through a pharmacy in New York. The sad part is that most doctors can't help us because each specific rare disease only affects a small number of individuals, so the scientific understanding and clinical expertise is limited. For years, I had been searching for that answer, for that diagnosis, and I hoped that it would lead us to a clear treatment plan resulting in a healthy, normal child. But instead, her diagnosis left us more alone and dreading Michaela's future and our family's future. At the time, her older sister Faith was just 7, and her little brother Aiden was only 11 months old. The truth is that rare diseases devastate the whole family. Siblings, the relationships you have with extended family and friends. Personally, I lost some of my closest friends. I was isolated by my family, and eventually, my marriage didn't survive either. I've had to take a leave of absence from teaching, which is a career that I love with a passion, but rare is just too overwhelming. This is a picture of our family that appeared in the Windsor Star shortly after she was diagnosed. After recovering from that initial devastation, I went into a fight mode and I began searching and praying and begging for help. And the first treatment that was suggested was an experimental stem cell transplant that was offered in the United States at a cost of $500,000 US. We attempted, but we were not able to raise that money in time. Here's another fact according to the Canadian Organization for Rare Disorders. Only 60% of treatments for rare disorders ever make it into Canada, and most get approved up to 6 years later than in the USA or Europe. So rare people here in Canada are missing out on treatments that could save or significantly improve their lives, and this needs to change.
Why? Why is it so behind Canada?
That would be a question for Health Canada and the government. It's basically based on money, and there's protocols and red tape. Oops. So, if doctors can't help us, where does the support come from? When Michaela has new symptoms, I turn to other NPS moms who have also been forced to become experts by default, and I thank God for them. In the world of rare diseases, moving science forward depends on the ability of the disease communities to organize, raise funds privately, and share information. Rare diseases are not profitable because it costs way too much money to develop treatments for so few. Conservatively speaking, it usually takes about a decade for a treatment to evolve from the initial idea to an actual product that can be in consumers' hands. Our rare kids just don't have that time. So luckily, I found other motivated NPS families, and we joined forces to form Team San Filippo. And thanks to their dedicated efforts, building on those of the NPS families that came before us, plus the financial support of all of our families, communities, we have now got to a point where we have potential treatments on the horizon. We have hope. 3 years ago, Michaela was invited to participate in a new drug trial in the United States that shows the promise of improving her quality of life, perhaps long enough for other therapies to come to fruition. But sadly, there have been many financial obstacles and red tape delays. I no longer hold my breath. But I was told earlier this week that everything is coming together finally, and it looks like the trial could begin as early as June 2020. And this will be yet a new rare reality that will require us to travel to a trial site in the United States once a week for 12 months. And how will I pay for that? I guess that's tomorrow's problem. What is my rare family like today? Well, Michaela is doing well, and when she is doing well, so am I. All the milestones of life, though, are marked by both celebration and grief. I wonder, will this be the last one? I've always considered myself to be a person who looks at life as glass is half full. But I have learned very quickly that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Caring for Michaela is exhausting. At the same time, it is the greatest privilege of my life. Overall, right now, Michaela is beating the odds because she's 15 years old. She's still able to walk with limited assistance, and she can still chew and swallow normally. Most days she's able to attend school. So, how do we end this up? What can you do? Well, if you are in contact with a family that is rare or someone that's suffering with a chronic illness, I think we're all looking for the same things. It's the simple things in life that make us feel most loved and supported. You can consider offering a rare family help with the little things like cooking, grocery shopping, helping with transportation. All of these small favors can help relieve the burdens placed on the family that are already so overtaxed. What has helped me the most is knowing that we're in the thoughts and prayers of so many people. People might not understand the condition nor what my life is like, but that's okay. Just hearing their encouraging words and knowing that they see me sometimes gives me the strength to carry on. And for those of you who are in healthcare, the most important thing that you can do is show that you care. Take time to actively listen to the parents and then offer words of kindness, praise. Doing a good job, Mom, goes a long way. Show compassion, care, and concern. So, I kind of like this quote, a friend is someone who helps you when you're down, and if they can't, then they lay down beside you and listen. So thank you for taking the time to listen tonight.